Just a couple of weeks ago, I was reviewing the WeCreat Vista. That's a brand new 10-watt diode laser, fully enclosed. It's nicknamed the flip laser. That's because the laser head basically flips 90 degrees so that you can do rotary inside that compact enclosure. One thing I touched on in the video was that a 2-watt IR module is possible to buy as an add-on separate from the machine itself. I just didn't want to dilute the video with so much detail that people got overwhelmed, and I thought it would be good to do a separate video on that 2-watt IR module. So let's go! So what exactly is meant by IR when speaking about lasers? Well, it's infrared. And no, I don't mean those little red dot laser pointers you use to make your cats go bonkers. The 2-watt IR module is going to behave differently than a 10-watt diode simply because their wavelengths are different. A 2-watt IR module will be able to mark metals and plastics and other materials that a 10-watt diode isn't going to be able to touch without some help. So if you're interested in working with metal, specifically metal really, then you probably want to consider an IR unit. I do also want to take a moment to be very thankful for the fact that laser companies are now appropriately calling these IR modules. Been about a year since I last touched an IR unit, and marketing at that time was trying to push them as fiber lasers. Sadly, I fell into that trap. An IR module should not be confused with a true fiber laser. So when I say you can mark materials, I mean it. It's going to scratch the surface. It's not going to be able to get really deep. I will say though that being able to take material like stainless steel and use different power and frequency combos to get colors to come out, pretty cool. Now, WeCreat has already provided a pretty thorough video tutorial on how to install the module. And seeing as how I'm a programmer by trade, I don't really like to duplicate. So what I'll do is I will link to their help article and their video that demonstrates how you swap out the 10-watt for the 2-watt IR module. It is going to require a little more elbow grease than just flipping up a switch and sliding the modules in and out, which I think at this day and age, if you are trying to pimp out a laser to say someone who may not be an expert in lasers and you want to offer modules like that, they should probably be a little easier to swap. I also just have like this absolute fear of having to pull on any cables that have pins. Just feel like I'm gonna bend them or rip them apart. So make sure to exercise caution when you do choose to swap out the modules. Now let's go over a few things that you can do with an IR module. You can do aluminum business cards. These are really neat, and they do come out a lot cleaner if you do them with an IR module as opposed to a diode. Essentially, they're just coated aluminum. They're also pretty flimsy. You can see the level of detail that I'm basically getting off of this thing. They also provided some powder-coated metal plates. I don't know what kind of metal this is offhand, and there wasn't anything in the box to kind of give me an idea. If I could guess, I would say it's aluminum, because if it was stainless steel, it probably would have marked the steel. This gives you an idea how you can use the 2-watt unit to do tumblers that have been powder-coated. This honestly was the first test that I did because it's not my material, and it was one of those where I could kind of like dial it in pretty easily and get a sense of like what should my dots per inch be, or I guess the software uses lines per centimeter. Next, I tried brass. Brass engraved really well. I was really chuffed with the amount of detail that I was able to get from the D20. You can also see that the engraving happened deeply enough that you don't really have to just shine it into the light just the right way to see all of the lines. Sometimes when you're marking jewelry, it is just that. It's just gonna mark it. The only way you're gonna get like a super deep engraving, like if you wanted to do like challenge coins or stamps for leather embossing, is if you get like a 30-watt or 60-watt fiber, and I mean proper fiber. However, I really like the brass. It's not that it's a deep engraving, it's a different color enough from the metal itself that you can actually see, which leads me into some jewelry examples. So I have these little stainless steel charms that I got for jewelry. I guess keychains too, bag charms, etc. And they do engrave pretty well. The problem is, you kind of have to shine them in just the right angle of light to be able to see it. It's not going to be very pronounced or deep, like if you would use a stamping tool or a fiber laser, but it does work. I basically did a pass on the first side of it using minimal power just to see like how far I could go. Then I flipped it over and I did 2 passes. It did make it darker, but the other thing to note is this might not be the right kind of metal to use for this, you know? Like if I had had brass charms, that definitely would look better. It's just in general, I don't like to wear or use gold accessories. I'm just weird like that, okay? It absolutely can mark slate. I just wouldn't use it for that because in order to mark it, you have to run at 100% power and like 7 for your speed. So it takes forever. So you can mark slate with a diode. I would just stick to the diode unless it's a really small item or a very small part of a design that you're trying to put onto the slate. I think the time estimate was like 1.5 hours to do a simple design, so I stopped it. This, however, was done on the diode module. So just know slate is an option for you. You just probably should do it on the diode. So I have these really tiny metal plates that I had gotten for tennis bracelets. It's extremely difficult to get the focus on this and to put your design on it correctly. Being a circular shape also means that you kind of need a more circular design, otherwise you have a lot of dead space. Unfortunately, it doesn't seem like the camera enjoyed this little guy. You may have noticed in a few of the clips that I've shown you of the laser working, I actually used a white sheet of printer paper to put underneath everything so that I wouldn't have issues with focus. This is because the focus unit and the camera are sitting up at the front of the lid on the WeCreat. That means you need to have the lid open and have your material directly under the red dot that's in the center of the material bed. You can use the application to do all of the manual focusing that you need, but it's a little harder to measure. Both the diode and the 2-watt IR modules are fully enclosed, and the 2-watt module gets pretty low to the material, so it was kind of hard to see for something itty bitty like this if I was actually lining up correctly. So what I ended up doing was taking the slate coaster that I said, please stop, I don't want to wait 1.5 hours for this, and I scored a circle on it. A circle exactly the size of this charm. Then I refreshed the camera so I could get an accurate view. Or at least I thought it was an accurate view until I got the results. I tried a couple of different times, but I think ultimately what happened is that maybe there was a tiny bit of airflow or something knocked around and this went flying. Well, I don't mean like literally like going whee, but I do think it jostled or slipped around. So what I would probably do like with something tiny like this is use a little bit of double-sided tape on the underside and stick it to something heavy like that slate coaster. Now, scoring or cutting out shapes to fit what it is you're going to be engraving, so make sure that you have accurate placement, is actually a really good trick. Sometimes the most simple manual way of doing things will yield better results. I mean, the Starfleet logo isn't exactly dead center on this thing, but that's user error. So we could take a look at this screenshot that I have from the software as I was trying to place everything. With the score line done as well as it was and the design basically centered to it, I'm resigned to say that it was probably micro vibrations in the machine while it was working that jostled this out of the way. But to be completely honest, I have yet to see a camera system be 100% accurate. And that's a hill I'm willing to die on. I did say that it could do plastics as well. Unfortunately, I didn't have any laser-safe plastics around to engrave, so I can't really demonstrate the plastic capabilities. Overall, I gotta say, these are my 2 favorite pieces, and I'm definitely going to enjoy using this on brass. I deeply appreciate the way that laser companies are now exploring having multiple options for the lasers you're investing in. It really sucks to have like several lasers that all do different specialty things. Note that I'm saying that as someone who has 4 sewing machines in this room, each one having their own purpose. But there's only so much tabletop space left in my house for lasers. And it's nice really to just have like the machine be the driver and then you have these different modules that let you enhance whatever it is you want to do. So if you want to work with woods, you have your 10-watt diode module. Then you swap to metal and you just put in the 2-watt IR module. So it's giving you more capabilities and expanding upon all the things that you can work with. And seeing as how the WeCreat Vista is targeted toward people who want to get into something like laser engraving, but without having to dump thousands of dollars into it, that's a pretty darn nice option. Now, are you going to be able to run this at production production speeds and do hundreds of these things like for a business? Probably not, unless you have copious amounts of free time that I do not have. But what it will do is open the door for you so you can learn more about lasers without the massive investment. And that's pretty much my opinion on all of it. I'll make sure to leave a link in the description of the video below for the original review that I gave for the WeCreat Vista just a couple of weeks ago. That way, if you're coming into this for the first time, you can kind of get that backstory. And if you're interested in picking up the 2-watt IR module for your WeCreat Vista, I'll also have a link for that in the description as well. As always, like the video, subscribe to my channel so that you can feed my ego. Thank you so much and have a wonderful day. Bye!